Our distinguished speaker today is Professor Theresa Newman. Professor Newman is the Charles S. Rhyne Clinical Professor of Law at Duke, the co-founder and co-director of Duke Law's Wrongful Convictions Clinic, and a leader in the National Innocence Movement. A longtime member of the Duke Law faculty, Professor Newman also serves as Associate Director of the Center for Criminal Justice and Professional Responsibility and the faculty advisor to the Duke's student-led chapter of the Innocence Project. She was a founding member of the board of the International Innocence Network, was the group's inaugural co-president, later served as its president, helping set standards and ethical guidelines for innocence clinics across the country. After earning her law degree at Duke, Professor Newman clerked for the Honorable J. Dickson Phillips, Jr. on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit and practiced in the civil litigation group of the Womble Law Firm in Raleigh. She returned to Duke in 1990 to serve as general editor of Law and Contemporary Problems and the Alaska Law Review, and later as advisor to all of the law school's student-edited journals. She went on to teach legal analysis, research and writing, and legal ethics, and serve as the director of legal writing. And from 1999 to 2008, she served as Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. She has twice been honored by the law school's Law Alumni Association, receiving the Young Alumni Award in 2003 and sharing the A. Kenneth Pye Award for Excellence in Education with Professor James E. Coleman, Jr. in 2018. In 2008, Professor Newman and Professor Coleman established the Wrongful Convictions Clinic at Duke Law School to investigate claims of innocence made by North Carolina inmates convicted of felonies. Under the supervision of faculty, students in the clinic assist with developing clients' claims and, when necessary, pursuing relief in state or federal court. Since its founding, the clinic has secured the exoneration of 10 clients for crimes they did not commit and their release from prison after long periods of incarceration. 4 have been freed in just the last 2 years after collectively serving 118 years behind bars. We are honored to have this distinguished alumna, treasured faculty member, and tireless champion for justice address the class of 2021 today. Professor Newman.
When anyone reads my bio, I think it sounds like I just couldn't keep a job. They just kept moving me from position to position until finally I'm about to retire. So the resume ends here. Thank you, Dean Abrams. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, faculty and staff, seated where they've never sat before except for a basketball game. Good morning. I love the Zoom screens. Good morning, families and friends of the graduates and other faculty members. Hello up there, including, I believe, some of my colleagues. And good morning, a special good, I have it in caps, good morning to all of the graduates of the both LLM and JD classes of 2021. I wanted to say virtual, real, near, and far, welcome and congratulations. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with you this morning and to have the honor of speaking to you one more time. I know a number of you, some extremely well, and I sincerely wish I knew many, many more of you. What likely seems oh so long ago, I had the honor of speaking to you all together one time before. After the showing of at least the JD class, my apologies to the LLM class, but after the showing of the trials of Darrell Hunt at orientation. Do you remember yourselves then? Both classes, do you remember what you were like then? You seemed excited and a bit nervous, unsure of what lay ahead. What I most clearly remember about you, however, is how deeply moved you were by the injustice Darrell Hunt suffered. Although you had not had a single law school class, you are already eager to engage with the problems that led to Daryl's 20-year wrongful incarceration and, tragically, his death by suicide 10 years after his exoneration. A number of you approached the panelists afterward, including me, and you asked, "How can I help?" Since then, you have found myriad ways to do just that. Maybe not with the problems evident in Daryl Hunt's case, but with some of the other areas in need of attention. And as you know, the need is great. After orientation, I had the pleasure of engaging with many of you in lighter moments over the next 2 years, in the classroom, in committee meetings, at lunchtime events, in line at the cafe, and even just passing you, scurrying past you in the hallways to wherever we were going. To me, such interactions, even if only brief, are the stuff of life, and I enjoyed every one of them. Though, except perhaps for the time several of you took the last slice of veggie pizza right ahead of me before I entered for a lunchtime event. But no worries. I don't hold grudges, at least not for very long. Of course, this past year, our last together, has been woefully different. When I saw any of you, it was on the other side of a Zoom connection, which was a pale substitute for seeing you in person, but still a welcome alternative to not seeing you at all. But for many of us, moving to Zoom was not the greatest sacrifice of this extraordinary year, as we just heard. I know there were far greater losses and distinctly greater challenges, and I am deeply saddened by that. I so wish for all of you that it had been otherwise, but it wasn't. And given that, and the fact that you are here today preparing to graduate, is strikingly more noteworthy and a greater reason to celebrate than any other year in my long memory at Duke, including my very own, very happy graduation from this great law school. You met every typical challenge of a rigorous law school education, and it is rigorous. And then somehow you pulled it all out to meet the truly extraordinary challenges of this year. Although it is certainly not my place, I am so very proud of you for doing so, and I am excited about what you now know about yourselves and what you can accomplish in the future, which is truly anything. As you, or I have in my notes, as you are likely aware, and if you're paying attention, you are no doubt aware that I am retiring. I am leaving Duke Law School with you. I am, although, as my colleague Jim Coleman likes to tell our wrongful conviction students, and I agree, we are all lifers and will be forever called upon to assist with clinic work. I stand ready for that call. When my retirement was announced shortly ago, I received a letter from a student who graduated about 10 years ago and is now a partner in a Midwestern law firm. She congratulated me, but also wrote that when she was a student, she often felt insecure and unimportant because she wasn't on Journal or a member of Moot Court. She added that working in the Wrongful Convictions Clinic made her feel valuable and convinced her that she had what was required to be a good lawyer. Her letter touched me deeply, and I wonder how many more of us felt the same way. Her letter also inspired me to consider what experiences at Duke, both as a student and over the 3 decades since, helped shape me. Certainly, upon entering law school, I had very similar insecurities. I was a first-generation college student with no lawyers in the family or among our friends, and no real knowledge about law schools, embarrassingly little, or what lawyers even do. I was also the oldest member of the class, with 2 small children in tow. Because of that, I felt quite different and unlikely to succeed. Yet class by my torts professor, now retired, who had a notoriously gruff manner. I stammered out a string of responses, but eventually and embarrassingly admitted defeat. Then, at the end of class, still feeling embarrassed if not humiliated, I was met by supportive classmates who congratulated me for surviving the questioning and shared their own insecurities. I didn't realize it then, but I understood later that my classmates' small act of kindness dramatically helped ease my concerns about being at Duke and ticked up my confidence about being able to succeed. All of these years later, I am still so grateful for it. Over the years since, I have witnessed and experienced other acts at Duke, grand and small, that have shaped me, but more important, have left me more hopeful about the state of things larger than myself. Individually and collectively, these acts have provided evidence that, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. I fervently hope that is true. Years ago, when talking to a Duke Law colleague about a minor administrative problem I was facing, one I was hoping would just resolve on its own, she scolded me, saying that, quote, hope is not a good management strategy. That is, hope alone is unlikely to effect change. Yet, as Brian Stevenson reminds us in his great book, Just Mercy, hope is critically important. Without hope, we are not inspired to take action, and without action, change cannot occur. The arc of the moral universe does not bend on its own. We all, the JDs, witnessed a remarkable arc-bending act captured in the Daryl Hunt movie. Recall that in the final court hearing, just before Daryl was released on a finding of innocence, after 20 years in prison, the victim's mother took the stand and forcefully told the judge, "You are about to release the man who killed my daughter." He did not. When Daryl was next offered a chance to speak, he rose from his seat, turned and spoke directly to that mother. I can't explain why people say what they say, or why they lie, or why all this happened, he said. Only God can. That's how I lived my days in prison, knowing that only God can bring about justice. And then, remarkably, he said, I just ask that you and your family know that in my heart, you are in my prayers. That selfless, compassionate act may not have changed the mother's mind about Daryl's release, but it has affected so many others, those present in the courtroom that day and the thousands more who have watched it afterward. As he spoke, you could almost feel the arc of the moral universe bending. In a case from the Wrongful Convictions Clinic, at an uncontested hearing, when we knew our client's conviction was going to be overturned, the judge did something very few judges and other state actors do. He apologized for the injustice, adding that although he believes he does justice every day, that day, the day he released our client after 17 years, was, quote, as close to knowing I am doing justice as I will ever experience in my career. He then descended from the bench, shook our client's hand, and welcomed him home. That is what justice can look like. In another case, our client took a stunningly selfless stand to promote justice. Over the 25 years of his wrongful prosecution and incarceration, He rejected multiple plea offers that would have sent him home many years before his exoneration in 2019. He rejected them partly because he was innocent, but mainly because he understood, as he put it, that walking out the back door of the prison would allow the state to avoid scrutiny, and the injustice in his case would continue in other cases. Over the years, students, including all of you, have taken countless other generous, kind, compassionate, creative, arc-bending acts in both your personal and professional lives. For example, and it's a long list, but these are examples. For example, outside of the law school, you comforted a friend, you cared for family members, you fostered puppies and kittens, you served food in the community kitchen, prepared tax returns, tutored children, built Habitat for Humanity homes, developed Twitter accounts to collect and comment on the news of the day. You organized and participated in protest rallies. You campaigned for candidates, and critically, you voted. At the law school, you shared class notes and course outlines, organized lunchtime events on current affairs, founded new social justice organizations, wrote, edited, and published relevant and important scholarly works. You represented clinic clients, celebrated members of the law school staffs, sometimes anonymously, and organized, engaged in sometimes challenging community-wide discussions. And finally, one of the simplest and yet extraordinarily moving acts by a student occurred in another clinic case hearing. As the judge was about to announce whether our client's conviction would be overturned and he could return home after nearly 25 years in prison, a student who had worked tirelessly on the case reached out from the bench behind the defense table and simply held his hand on the client's back. The room was silent, and the tension was almost unbearable. But that student's simple touch powerfully told our client that no matter the judge's decision, we are here, we support you. Sometimes that is all it takes to move justice, such a simple and powerful act. Of course, over the years, I have also witnessed small and great acts of inhumanity and injustice, including jailers yelling at a client for sitting in a staff chair rather than an inmate chair during one of our visits, dishonest lawyers continuing to hide exculpatory evidence, and devastating court decisions. I can't abide this anymore. And devastating court decisions that have left innocent clients in prison with diminishing chances of returning home. But witnessing those acts has not led us to despair or lose hope. After one disappointing setback in a case, I complained to former Duke Law faculty member Michael Tiger, the great criminal defense and civil rights lawyer. He responded as follows: "Seems to me that if we win all of our cases, we are not close enough to the edge, the place we need to be. The lawyers in South Africa during the apartheid era won only a very few victories. Those victories were all worthy and good, and the claims for justice kept alive the idea of what a system where there is a level playing field, judges who listen and care, an application of decent and civilized rules might look like. That is, they were looking to the future as well as the present. And as Albie Sachs said when Mandela was released, all revolutions are impossible until they happen. Then they become inevitable." Michael Tiger continued, "That," he said, "is what our students must take to heart. Law is not a thing, it is a process. In the process, our students learn how very privileged they are and how great is the gap between their client and themselves, and between the deciders and the clients. It is the advocate's job to understand the client, to see the gap, and to bridge it. In keeping with Michael Tiger's words, Jim Coleman's motto for our clinic, and with a nod to Winston Churchill, is, we never, 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 never give up. He may have more nevers, but we never, never, never give up. We never stop pursuing justice. We never stop doing what's right. We join hope and action, determine the next step, and with optimism, we move forward. As you are all poised for your next step, I know that you too will join hope and action and move forward with optimism. You have done that here, identifying areas of need, imagining possible solutions, and taking action. I am humbled and inspired by how much good you have done during your short time here. Please know that as I retire and move into the next days of my life, I will live by your example. And as you did during orientation, I will ask, how can I help? It makes me sad. I don't have this in my comments, but it makes me sad to be leaving a place I love, students I so admire, and but I'm so humbled to have had this opportunity to say goodbye to all of you and to Duke at the same time. So congratulations. What a lucky, lucky world to have all of you in it, and I can't wait to see what you do. So thank you.